Hey everybody, Jason here. It's been a while since I've uploaded a video of any kind. Um, been super busy with a lot of life stuff. Um, anyway, I have got a box here from Eric at Bloat Games. I'm going to unbox for you guys. I had ordered this a couple days ago, and of course I'm in Ohio. He's in Kentucky, so it's not like it's a super far shipment. But anyway, I as of right now, this little package will round out all of the physical copies of the books for this series that I need, except for maybe the GM screen, which I don't know if there's a physical copy or if I just have to print that out and kind of make it myself. I'm not really sure. Not really sure of a whole lot of things these days. Very nicely packed box, by the way. Nice and tight so things don't, roll around in there and get all messed up. Some foam, it's good. Ooh, all right. Wow, these books are bigger than I thought they'd be, which is funny because I've got the PDFs and I did picture them being this big. So this is pretty cool. Let's do this one first. First, both books are for the Dark Places and Demogorgons game that Eric Bloat wrote with Josh Palmer. The first book I have here is the Jeffersontown setting guide, the J-Town guide. I believe Jeffersontown, this may be where Eric grew up. I'm not sure the lore and everything behind this. I think that's what it is. I could be wrong. This is a really cool book. The PDF is fantastic. All the PDFs from here are fantastic. Here, get a little. It's kind of a dark cover, and I've got some new lighting, so hopefully that's not too shiny. And on the back, this is really cool. Check this out. The actual map, like a small map of Jeffersontown. That's really cool. This thing, paperback, clocks in at 138 pages for all you Misfits fans out there, including the index. The paper is a little bit of like sort of an off-whitish, almost creamish color. There is a lot of stuff in here. Oh man, I'm not going to go through all this because there's a ton, but I'll give you a little glance at the table of contents. Yeah, it's quite a bit. And again, in black and white in here is the same map that was on the back. It says Jeffersontown overview, and it's got a lot of information actually about the town. It says Jefferson, Kentucky was established 10 miles east of the outskirts of Louisville in the summer of 1794. It tells about some of the people who founded the town, where it's at, things like that. I'm guessing this is a real town. I don't know for sure, but I think it's a real town. Time zones, population, elevation, average household income, the geography, the climate and weather. It's pretty cool. First off, I should go back and say that this was actually written by Josh Palmer and Jonathan Meadows. And Eric Bloat did the layout and editing. Really, really cool stuff in here. There's a timeline of Jeffersontown. I'm guessing there's some fictional stuff in here and some real stuff. There's a colloquial, if that's how you pronounce that word, dictionary. Like some words like, if you're not from around here, I mean, not all of these words are used where I'm at, but from where I'm at up in Ohio, we still have some of these things like do what now? My wife is from Detroit, and she's never heard the term do what now, which is something that I've said around the house a few times, meaning, can you repeat what you just said? Do what now? Fixin' to, highfalutin, I'm gonna learn you, up yonder, over yonder, things like that. So that's pretty cool. Northwestern Jeffersontown, the wrong side of the tracks. It's got a little bit of the map there that shows you what the wrong side of the tracks is. A lot of things you could add to your campaign or your adventures to give it a lot of flavor and make it feel like a real place. You know, the Arbor Point Apartments, Archibald Cemetery and Church, Cat's Meow. It's a bar, Chili's Pawn Shop, all kinds of things where, with whether they're real or not in real life, having things like this where there's locations with names and histories and backgrounds. It's not just a building like, oh, you go to the local bar. No, you know, you go to the Cat's Meow. It tells who the owner is, where it's located. It gives a good description of it. Some stuff that goes on the weekends and during the day and this and that. And, you know, you don't often have a thing where your locations have personalities, but some of the stuff in here has personality, and they're just buildings or locations. Like, for example, I used to be a volunteer firefighter, so for me, this is interesting. The Northern Fire Department, standing out like a diamond in the rough, the Jeffersontown Fire Department, North, is the only new, well-maintained building north of the tracks. I don't know if this is really the real person or not, but the fire marshal, Michael Morales, is well respected in town. He coaches the local youth baseball team that recently won a state championship. Not only that, but it's got stuff like plot hooks and story things. Someone has been setting fires in your neighborhood, and you suspect that a student from school could be a pyromaniac. Michael Morales' home has been broken into while he is out of town with the baseball team. Someone paints graffiti on the wall at the fire department, and an investigation leads you to Jennifer Rabbit Jackson of the Golden Idol Guild. She claims she was framed by the Arbor Point gang. So all these things, just with this fire department, there's three story hooks that you could throw into something. And it looks like everything in here has at least between 1 and 3 story hooks, whether it's the Stamper Brothers Junkyard and Scrap, the local video store, the river docks, everything. There's the southwestern West Central Jeffersontown, which is the business district, has its own chapter. It's got attractions and there's the local karate dojo. The book, and we're only 24 pages in, this has a lot of stuff in it, man. Now, granted, I've only briefly glanced over the PDFs because I'm not a PDF person really, unless I love PDFs for the fact that you can print certain pages out and kind of make your own quick little GM source book for things, or player handouts and things like that. But to sit and read a PDF from front to back of a role-playing game for me is not easy. I don't know if I'm just old school or what, seeing as how I'm 40 years old now, but a physical copy of something goes a lot further for me than a PDF. Don't get me wrong, I love PDFs, but there's just something about being able to hold a book in your hand, and this book has a lot in it, whether it's just art, and a lot of this art you can tell is Bradley K. McDivitt's art. He's done a lot of stuff with Bloat Games, and it's nice to see consistency using the same artists and stuff too, which is awesome. But man, 41 pages in, the Abandoned Factory, an abandoned subdivision, Briar's Feed Store, Chenoweth Knobs, which is a highly populated middle-class subdivision. Everything in here has at least one story hook. Every location has at least one story hook. That's insane. That is insane. It says here, places of note. That's funny, coming from page 67, when the first 60-some pages were all places of note, but some of these must be even more special. There's magical items, which if you decide to introduce magic into your campaign, I guess you could use some of these things here. Let me give an example here. See if I can pronounce this right. There's a place called Ethel's Antiques, and one of the items that she has in her store is Artemisia's boots. It's a pair of well-worn boots from the Greco-Persian era, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically they give you a bonus to a couple of your stats and some special abilities. Nothing game-breaking, A plus bonus to your toughness, you can walk on water. Plus bonus to a couple, physical checks, charisma, and things like that. They do nothing if worn by a man. So there's some story behind that too. Artemisia was a famous, legendary Persian admiral, so that's maybe why. But there's all kinds of things in here. There's a price for these things. This other here thing says Gem of Bastet was not for sale. There's all kinds of stuff in here. There's obviously some crunch in here because it's a role-playing game. But this is there's just so much fluff and lore. And if you were to get Dark Places and Demogorgons and you weren't super really sure about what to do with stories, or do I run it in my hometown? Do I run it in a fictional town? You could run an entire campaign and probably, I don't know if you saw it in the other video I did where I was talking about the Forgotten Realms box set, the gray box or gold box. Like, you could do that with this. This is all you would need to run a campaign, multiple campaigns in Dark Places and Demogorgons. You could use your own hometown. You could use this as a guidebook to create your own hometown setting, which I wouldn't mind. I used to live in London, Ohio for a long time. Small town. I live in Columbus now, so that would be a much probably harder book to write, but I would love to use this as a guide, as a template maybe, to write a small book for myself about London, Ohio. Things like that. So this is awesome. This is good stuff. A little bit of the artwork is recycled. Not a big deal because it's good artwork. If you got the core book, you'll recognize a few of the pictures and stuff. But overall, lots of new stuff. Lots of really good stuff. Awesome stuff. This is good stuff right here. And I'll put links below to purchase these. I got these directly from Eric's Squarespace store. You can also order the PDFs and hard copies from DriveThruRPG and I believe Lulu. But I ordered these directly from Eric. Hopefully he gets more money from being ordered direct from him rather than through a middleman like DriveThru. I don't know if he does or not, but hopefully he does. Anyway, the second book we have here is called The Dark Places and Demogorgons Players, Options, and GM Guide. Picture that. This book clocks in at 122 pages with the index. And it's got a number of things in here. This has a bunch of new classes. I'm not going to read all of them to you, but it's got things like an equestrian show rider, a monster hunter, an ROTC cadet, street tough, a teen ninja, things like that. It's got a couple of classes for magic and new rules to be able to use magic if you're a player, which weren't in the, I believe were not in the core book. But it's got spells, familiars, potion making, an expanded skill list, expanded items, developmental charts, optional rules, things like that. This also has, which I think is really cool, the optional rules to go higher than 5th level, because the core book you only go from levels 1 through 5, which I think is fantastic. That's really smart. I think games that focus on between 1 and 10 levels are tighter. The rules are tighter. There's a lot less power bloat, power creep, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, and there's exceptions to every rule, but anyway, I think that the core book having only 5 levels is fantastic. This, however, lets you have up to 7 levels, so it gives you an optional 6th and 7th level. With new classes, there's class updates for all the classes. Yeah, this book was written by Josh Palmer, just by Josh Palmer. And Eric also did the layout for it. And of course, Bradley K. McDivitt has interior art. And the cover art was by, I apologize if I pronounce this wrong, but Anthony Cornoyer. I apologize for Shaman stock art. So far, I'm not coming across tons of artwork, only a little bit here and there. but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Because what art there is fantastic, but there's so much. This one's a little more crunchy, I think, than the last book. The Jeffersontown setting guide is more fluff than crunch. This is more crunch than fluff. So they make a good. These two books make a good pair because they kind of play off each other very well in that regard. But here's a little picture from Bradley K. McDivitt. And that was a picture of where the Black Witch is, the new class, the Black Witch. It's got stuff like, for example, and this is fantastic, and I don't know why I find this so amazing, but examples of what things would cost back in the 80s. Like a normal calculator cost $2. The calculator that goes on your wrist, like a little wristwatch, is $10. A boombox, not a radio, not a tape player, a boombox, $50 plus. A disposable camera, $4. Chemistry set, $7 and up. VHS tapes, VCRs, basic watches, $3. But if you wanted to spend some serious cash and get a Swatch watch, yes, $20 plus. But all kinds of stuff like candy bars, 50 cents. A pack of gum, 25 cents. Tacos, 50 cents. Just really cool stuff, man. Things that if you're around my age or older, it'll take you back, man. It really will. Lots of good stuff in here. Like, again, if you're, like I said, this book and the Jeffersontown setting guide really play well off each other as far as one having lots of fluff, one having lots of crunch. Here's a chart. It's your crush of the 80s. It's a D100 roll. So your female crushes or idols from the 80s. Anywhere from Michelle Pfeiffer to Bo Derek to Kim Basinger, Debbie Gibson, Steffi Graf, yes. Ali Sheedy, Molly Ringwald, double yes. Belinda Carlisle, just Sigourney Weaver and Sean Young. Yes, yes, and yes. And then for guys, like a male crush, Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course, Keanu Reeves, Michael Keaton, Ralph Macchio. This is just so full of nostalgia, and it's very true to the era. John Cryer, Sean Penn, Tom Wopat. That's right. Billy D. Williams, this Mr. Smooth himself. It's just fantastic. It only takes up a couple pages, and you might think to yourself, well, why would someone need a chart for something like that? If you grew up in the 80s, you would know why we need a chart like that, because it's fucking awesome. There's a random fear generator. Like, what is your character afraid of? Being chased, driving a vehicle. Your character's afraid of driving. You're afraid of guns. You're afraid of being abducted. You're afraid of people wearing masks or excessive makeup. You're afraid of the number 13. You're afraid of Michael Jackson, which I guess that's a legit fear. Which is funny because when I was a kid growing up, I can only remember 2 nightmares growing up. One of them involved Michael Jackson, and probably not the way you're thinking. It involved him being a vampire and trying to kill people. That was it. But so it's funny. But here's your song of the 80s. So you can roll on this chart that has a D100 chart. Pop rock and R&B party songs, pop rock, R&B slow dance songs, your favorite songs from the alt rock or punk, hard rock, heavy metal, hair metal, speed and thrash metal, rap and country. So you roll on this chart, like say I roll a 78. So my favorite song is from the speed and thrash metal category. I will go to the speed and thrash metal category, and I will roll my D100 again, and let's say I get, I don't know, 37. It's a 50s. Okay, 37. Welcome Home, Sanitarium by Metallica. Yeah, I could see that being someone's favorite song. Let's say we roll on the pop, rock, R&B party songs. And I roll 67. Let's see, 67. Don't You Want Me by the Human League. Of course, why not? Makes perfect sense. So there's awesome stuff like that. Just awesome. I didn't listen to a lot of 80s rap, but it's got stuff like Public Enemy, Ice-T, NWA, Run DMC, Tone Loc. So yeah, a lot of this stuff I've probably heard. But and then movies of the 80s. What are your favorite movies from the 80s? And it doesn't have to be your favorite. You could say something like, okay, well, your characters are running down Main Street in the middle of a game session, and your character's like, oh, well, what's playing at the cinema? I don't know, good question. Let me roll up real quick. We rolled this, and then we rolled this. So we ended up getting Delta Force. Why not? Delta Force, that's awesome shit. Or sci-fi fantasy. The Beastmaster. Yeah. The Eliminators. I don't... Yeah. Oh my god. So, oh yes, that's fantastic. My favorite horror movie ever, Evil Dead 2, is on this list. So that's fantastic. And then my other second favorite horror movie ever, Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, also on this list. So, I mean, if you're referencing Evil Dead 2 and Jason Lives, that alone is worth the price of admission for this book. So this is a lot of charts and things like that. So again, these two books really complement each other very well. If you have the option, and these are not expensive books either, by the way. These are not expensive at all. It's worth dropping the money for these. It really is. And these are books that, not so much necessarily this one, but this one in particular, you could use for a number of games set in the 80s, not just Dark Places and Demogorgons. You could use this too, because it's mostly fluff, but it's kind of specific to that town and setting. But you could make do with that very easily. But this, if you cut out some of the classes and stuff that pertain specifically to Dark Places, this is really cool. There's a lot of 80s nostalgia stuff on here, the charts and the throwbacks and the transportations and what things cost and things like that. I mean, this is just good stuff. So congrats to Eric and Josh Palmer and Jonathan Meadows, who helped write the J-Town guide. But this is good stuff. Super cheap, super awesome. And I didn't intend really to do a review. It just kind of happened. But these things are too good to not do reviews on. These are awesome. And the quality is fantastic. The binding on them is perfect. Good stuff. Again, I'll put the links down below to get these. And I highly recommend checking out other stuff from Bloat Games, especially the Vigilante Hack. That's really awesome. If you're a fan of the TV show Arrow or other things like that, stuff where there's, I should say, older seasons of Arrow where there were less superpowers and stuff, where it's more grounded in reality, or Netflix's Punisher or things like that. Think vigilantes, not superheroes. That's a fantastic game also, but that's another video for another time. But anyway, Dark Places and Demogorgons, check this stuff out, man. It's awesome. Thanks you guys for watching, and hope you guys take it easy. Have fun.
Bye-bye.